The town of Dry Creek had seen plenty of drifters, men broken by war or whiskey, but when Luke Morgan rode in with 2 children slumped against him, folks stopped to stare. His coat was worn thin, boots cracked, hat sagging from weather and years. Behind him, a boy of 8 and a girl no older than 6 clung silently, their eyes hollow with hunger. Luke's jaw was set hard, but his gaze carried a desperation too raw to hide. He tied his horse outside the saloon, lifted the children down gently, and walked with the weight of a man out of choices. Across the street, Clara James, the widow-turned-rancher, was hauling sacks of grain into her wagon. She was known for her strength, not just of body, but of spirit, a woman who had buried her husband young and kept her land alive by grit alone. When she saw Luke leading the children, her brow furrowed. She recognized hunger when she saw it. She had lived through winters that bit to the bone. Luke approached, his voice hoarse. "Ma'am," he began, tipping his hat, "I need to ask a thing no man should ever have to ask." Clara set the sack down, listening. Luke knelt, placing a hand on each child's shoulder. "I can't feed 'em no more. They deserve better than riding a dead horse of a father. You've got land, food, steadiness. I'm asking you, take my children." His words cracked, and though he tried to steady his jaw, it trembled. Clara's heart clenched. The girl hid her face in Luke's coat. The boy stood stiff, trying to be braver than his years. Clara exhaled slow, dust swirling around her boots. "And what about you, Luke Morgan?" she asked quietly. He looked at her, hollow-eyed. "Don't matter none. Just save them." The silence between them stretched like a rope pulled taut. Clara studied the man, his calloused hands, his sunburnt skin, the weight in his shoulders. She saw not weakness, but exhaustion, the kind that carves itself into a soul. Finally, she shook her head. "No, Luke." His face fell, and the boy tensed, as if bracing for rejection's sting. But Clara's voice sharpened. "I won't take just the children. If they come to me, so do you. You'll stand on your feet. You'll work my land. You'll eat at my table. I won't save half a family." Her words were steel, yet kind. Luke blinked, stunned. "You'd take me too?" Clara crossed her arms. "I don't run charity, and I don't run from burdens. You've still got fight left, I can see it. You want your young'uns to live? Then you'll live too. That's the only bargain I'll strike." The boy glanced up, hope flickering across his face. The girl clutched Clara's skirt, shy but curious. Luke swallowed hard, voice thick. "I ain't worth much." Clara softened. "Worth ain't measured in gold, cowboy. It's measured in whether you stay standing when the world wants you on your knees." Luke lowered his head. "Then I'll stand." By sundown, Clara had them in her wagon, the children nestled among sacks of grain. Luke rode beside her, silent, his eyes fixed on the road, as if afraid the vision might vanish. Dust rose in long ribbons behind them, catching the fading light. The children dozed, their heads leaning together. Clara flicked the reins, her jaw set, but her heart unsteady. She hadn't planned to share her life again. Yet something in Luke's plea had stirred her, the way a dry creek stirs when rain finally falls. She told herself it was duty, not fate. But the land knew better. The ranch sat wide and quiet, fences stretching, the barn weathered but sturdy. Clara helped the children down, leading them into the house. The girl's eyes lit at the sight of bread on the table. The boy's hand lingered near the hearth's warmth. Luke stood awkwardly at the door, hat in hand, as though afraid to cross the threshold. "Come in," Clara said firmly. "You're not a stranger here anymore." He stepped inside, the floorboards creaking under his weight. For the first time in months, he smelled fresh coffee, heard the crackle of firewood, felt the hum of a home alive. That night, Clara laid quilts in the loft for the children, tucking them in as gently as if they were her own. Luke lingered downstairs, staring at the flames. Clara joined him, setting 2 mugs of coffee on the table. "You owe me honesty," she said. "What broke you?" Luke's jaw tightened. Wife died birthing the girl. Ranch failed after the drought. Tried working cattle drives, but men don't want a hand with baggage. Spent the last of my wages feeding them till I couldn't anymore. His voice faltered. "They're all I've got, Clara, and I nearly lost 'em." Clara studied him. The pain etched deep, the shame he carried like chains. "You didn't lose them," she said firmly. "You held on, long as you could. Now you've got help. But hear me, Luke, this ain't pity. You'll pull your weight here, same as me. I won't raise your children while you drink yourself into the ground." He met her eyes, raw and steady. "No whiskey left in me. Only work." She nodded. "Then we'll get along." Outside, the wind whistled against the shutters. Inside, something unspoken took root trust. Fragile but real. Like a sprout in hard soil. At dawn, Clara rose early, the way she always had. But now, the rhythm changed. She found Luke already outside, splitting wood. His swing was strong but stiff, a man out of practice. She watched quietly, then called, "You'll blister before breakfast if you keep at it like that." He grinned, sheepishly, sweat on his brow. Forgot the trick. She showed him how to angle the axe. Precise, efficient. He adjusted, and the logs cracked clean. The boy clapped from the porch. "Pa's working!" he shouted proudly. Luke's face softened, a flicker of pride breaking through the years of wear. The children settled faster than Clara expected. The girl, Emma, shadowed her in the kitchen, eager to stir dough or fetch water. The boy, Daniel, followed Luke everywhere, trying to mimic his every move. One evening, Clara caught Daniel sneaking her broom to help sweep, nearly knocking over the lantern. She laughed, surprising herself with the sound. "Easy, Cowboy," she teased. Daniel grinned, chest puffed. "I'll help Pa fix the fences, too." Clara smiled, realizing the boy's pride in his father was already mending wounds she couldn't see, and she thought maybe healing came easier when shared across a table. Luke proved himself in small ways. He mended the corral, sharpened tools, and drove nails with the patience of a man earning back dignity. Clara noticed the way he worked without complaint, how he never let the children go hungry before himself. Still, he held back, keeping a distance, as if afraid his presence was temporary. One evening, she confronted him. "You planning to vanish when the load feels lighter?" He looked startled, then shook his head. "Not if you'll have me. I just don't know what I deserve anymore." Clara answered simply, "Deserve's got nothing to do with it." Life wasn't suddenly easy. The ranch still demanded sweat, storms still threatened the crops, and deaths still lingered. But with Luke's hands beside hers, Clara felt the work lighten. Together they hauled hay, branded calves, and rode fence lines. At night, when the children slept, they shared quiet over coffee, sometimes speaking, sometimes just listening to the wind. Clara found herself studying the lines of his face, the steadiness in his eyes. She told herself it was gratitude, nothing more. Yet her heart betrayed her, skipping when his hand brushed hers while passing a cup. The West allowed no hiding. Trouble came sooner than she'd hoped. One afternoon, while Luke and Daniel were repairing fence, riders appeared on the ridge, 3 men known in town for stirring trouble. Clara saw them first, rifle in hand, calling Luke inside. "They're looking for easy prey," she muttered. Luke's jaw set. "Then they'll see we ain't easy." The men circled slow, grinning. "Nice spread," one drawled. "Shame if someone took a liking to it." Clara stepped forward, rifle steady. "This land's spoken for," the men sneered. But seeing her resolve, and Luke beside her, they rode off. For now. But shadows had been cast. That night, Luke confessed, "I failed once, Clara. Can't fail again. If men come for us, I'll fight." Clara met his gaze. "You won't fight alone. This ranch isn't just mine anymore. It's ours." His throat worked, eyes shining in the lantern light. He had asked her to save his children, and she had answered. But somewhere along the way, she had saved him too. And perhaps, she thought quietly, he was saving her. Outside, coyotes cried to the moon. Inside, the house breathed with life. 2 children sleeping sound, and 2 souls who had found something worth holding. Days turned into rhythm. Luke rose with the dawn. Clara rode the range. Emma gathered eggs. Daniel learned rope tricks from his father. At supper, laughter filled the kitchen, rough at first, then easier. Clara often caught herself pausing to listen, realizing how long it had been since her home had carried joy. Luke noticed too, his smile shy, but steady. "Feels like a family," he said one evening. Clara glanced at him, her heart tightening. That's because at Island, neither said more, but both felt the truth settling between them like roots too deep to be pulled. Still, not all hearts in town were kind. Whispers followed Clara when she came for supplies. "Widow's taken in a drifter," they muttered. "He'll bleed her dry." Luke heard too, his jaw tight. "I should go," he muttered once. Clara spun, eyes fierce. "You think I let gossip run my ranch? Let them talk. Words can't break fences, and they sure can't break me." Her defiance silenced him, but deep down, it healed something too. For the first time, someone wasn't ashamed of him. For the first time, he wasn't running. And the children, watching, knew safety when they saw it. One evening, storm clouds gathered heavy. Clara and Luke worked side by side, driving cattle into shelter. Rain came down hard, mud sucking at their boots. Emma cried, frightened by thunder, but Luke lifted her high, soothing her with a steady voice. Clara watched, struck by how naturally he carried the child's fear. Later, when the storm passed, she found herself whispering to him, "You're stronger than you know." He looked at her, rain dripping from his hat brim, and for once, didn't deny it. Instead, he said, "Not without you." Her breath caught, thunder echoing in her chest. The storm had passed, but change lingered in the air. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara and Luke sat by the fire. He turned his hat in his hands, voice low. "I meant it, Clara. I asked you to save my children, but you saved me too. I didn't think I had a place left in this world. You gave me one." She looked at him, firelight softening his worn features. "And you gave me back a home. One I thought I'd lost for good." For the first time in years, her hand reached across the table. Steady, Luke took her hand, rough fingers closing gently over hers. No promises were spoken, no vows exchanged. But in that quiet touch, the bargain of their lives was sealed. He had come to give away his children, ready to walk into nothing. She had refused, choosing all of them instead. Now, the house carried warmth again, the ranch carried hope, and the horizon no longer looked empty. Clara knew hard times would come again, storms, debts, whispers. But she also knew she would not face them alone. In the stillness of the firelight, a family had been forged. The morning sun broke clear after days of storm, but Clara felt unease in the air. Luke was already out by the corral, tightening ropes, while Daniel chased Emma with a stick horse. Clara watched them, her heart tugged by the sight, yet her mind turned to the riders on the ridge. Men like that didn't forget or forgive. She saddled her mare and rode the fence line, scanning the horizon. Dust rose in the distance, more than cattle could make. She knew then, trouble wasn't gone, only waiting. And soon it would test not just her land, but her heart. At supper that night, Luke spoke first. "They'll come again, Clara. I can feel it." His voice was low, steady. the tone of a man who had seen trouble before. Clara set down her fork, eyes narrowing. Then let 'em. This land won't bow easy. Emma looked up, frightened. Are bad men coming? Clara softened her voice. Not if your pa and I have anything to say about it. Daniel puffed his chest. I'll help. Luke reached across the table, steadying his son's hand. Your job is to stay safe, boy. Courage comes in many shapes. Sometimes it's waiting. The next day, Luke and Clara rode together into town for supplies. Whispers swirled as always, but now there was something else: admiration, grudging respect. Jensen, the storekeeper, leaned close. Word is, the Carson gang's been sniffing around. Dangerous men. If they think you're weak, they'll bleed you dry. Luke's jaw clenched. Clara met Jensen's gaze, calm but hard. Then we'll show 'em we ain't weak. As they loaded supplies, Luke murmured, We can't stand alone forever. Clara glanced at him. Maybe not, but we'll stand as long as it takes. That's what the land asks of us. That's what we'll give. That evening, Clara found Luke at the barn, sharpening his knife by lantern light. His face was shadowed, eyes distant. You're thinking of running, she said quietly. He stiffened, then sighed. If I leave, maybe they'll leave you be. Clara stepped forward, her hand firm on his arm. Don't you dare. I didn't take half a family just to watch it split again. We fight together, or we don't fight at all. He looked at her then, something breaking loose inside him. I don't deserve this, Clara. She shook her head. You don't get to decide what you deserve. We do. The gang came at dawn 3 days later. 6 riders, rifles across their saddles, faces hard with hunger for land not theirs. Luke saw them first, rousing Clara with a sharp knock. They're here. Together they woke the children, sending them to the cellar with quilts and bread. Daniel protested, but Luke's voice left no room. Protect your sister. That's your job. Outside, the riders circled, calling, Morning, widow. Morning, drifter. Time to share what you got. Clara and Luke stepped onto the porch, rifles in hand. The morning air smelled of dust and gunpowder, waiting to ignite. The scar-faced leader leaned forward in his saddle. Nice spread. Shame it don't belong to you. Clara raised her rifle. It belongs to those who work it. He chuckled. Then we'll work it after you're gone. Luke's voice cut sharp. You'll have to go through me first. The man grinned. Gladly. He raised his pistol, but Clara fired first, splintering the post beside his hand. The crack of the shot echoed across the valley. The gang cursed, pulling weapons. The fight was on. Dust whirled in the wind as bullets split wood and iron sang. The ranch had become a battlefield. Luke moved with the steadiness of a man who had fought too many fights before. He fired, reloaded, ducked behind the trough. Clara covered him from the porch, her shots precise, each one meant to protect, not boast. The children huddled below, hearing the thunder above them. Horses screamed, men cursed, smoke burned their eyes. One rustler fell, clutching his arm. Another fled, spooked by Clara's aim. But the leader pressed forward, shouting, The land's ours, the woman's ours, the children too. Rage surged through Luke, raw and blinding. He left cover, charging with a shout that shook even Clara. He tackled the leader, both crashing into the dirt. The man's pistol flew free, and they grappled, fists striking, boots kicking. Clara's breath caught, but she couldn't fire, not with Luke so close. Instead, she aimed at another rider rushing in, dropping him from his horse. Luke grunted as the leader's knife flashed, nicking his arm. He wrestled it free, slamming the man into the ground. Dust filled the air, choking, blinding. Finally, with a roar, Luke pinned him, pressing the blade against his throat. Silence fell, broken only by the whimper of wounded men and the ragged breath of horses. Yield, Luke growled. The scar-faced man spat blood. This ain't over. Clara stepped forward, rifle steady. It is here. Take what's left of your men and ride. You come back, you won't leave again." Her voice was ice, her aim unshaking. The leader sneered, then whistled. The remaining rustlers scrambled, dragging their wounded. Within moments, they were gone. Dust, trailing. Luke let the knife drop, his shoulders slumping. Clara lowered her rifle, rushing to him. His sleeve was soaked with blood, but his eyes burned with something fierce. "You stood, Luke," she whispered. He managed a tired smile. "So did you." When the children emerged, Daniel's eyes widened at the sight of his father's wound. "Pa!" he cried. Luke knelt, pulling him close. "I'm all right, son." We held together. Emma hugged Clara's waist, trembling. Clara soothed her, stroking her hair. "It's over, sweetheart. We're safe." The ranch lay scarred, posts splintered, glass shattered, the ground littered with shells. Yet it still stood. And in that battered silence, Clara realized the truth. The land had tested them, and they had not broken. For the first time in years, she believed not just in survival, but in a future. In the days that followed, neighbors came. Jensen brought lumber. The blacksmith offered nails. Even those who had whispered before lent a hand. "Word's out," Jensen said. "Carson gang won't be back. You two showed 'em what standing looks like." Clara nodded, pride swelling. Luke worked beside her despite his bandaged arm, refusing to rest. At night, when the children slept, Clara confronted him. "You nearly died." He looked at her, weary but proud. "Better that than leaving you alone." She reached for his hand, squeezing. "You'll never leave me alone. Not anymore." And for once, he didn't argue. As the ranch healed, so did the family. Daniel followed Luke everywhere, eager to learn rope tricks and fence work. Emma shadowed Clara, helping in the kitchen, her laughter brighter now. Luke often caught himself staring at them, eyes misting. Clara noticed, her own heart softening. One evening, Daniel asked, "Ma, when's supper?" Both adults froze, but Clara only smiled. "Soon, son." Luke met her gaze, startled, then grateful. In that one word, something shifted. She wasn't just helping anymore. She was theirs, and they were hers. The West had carved them together like stone shaped by endless wind. One evening, Clara and Luke sat on the porch, lantern flickering between them. The horizon glowed with sunset, the air thick with silence that didn't need filling. Finally, Luke spoke. "When I asked you to take my children, I thought I was giving away my last hope. Instead, you gave me a new one." Clara studied him, the scars on his hands, the wear in his face, the strength beneath it all. "You gave me back a family," she replied softly. He reached for her hand, rough and warm. This time, she didn't pull away. The silence sealed their vow. Winter crept in, bringing snow across the valley. The ranch glowed with life smoke curling from the chimney, laughter spilling from the kitchen. Clara watched Luke teaching Daniel to whittle by the fire. Emma perched on his knee. Her chest ached with something she hadn't felt in years, contentment. Later, when the children were asleep, she whispered to Luke, "I never thought I'd share my table again." He smiled faintly. "I never thought I'd deserve to sit at one." She kissed his hand softly. "Deserve's got nothing to do with it. Love does." For once, he believed her. Yet the West never gave peace without reminder. One night, coyotes howled close, and Emma woke crying. Luke carried her to Clara's room, laying her between them. The child snuggled close, whispering, "Don't let go." Clara and Luke lay awake, listening to the wind. He reached for her hand under the quilt, holding it steady. "I won't," he murmured. She squeezed back. In that moment, with the child safe between them and the land breathing outside, they knew they had become something unbreakable, not bound by law or paper, but by choice. And in the West, choice was everything. By spring, the ranch was thriving again. Calves grazed, fences held strong, and the family worked as one. Clara taught Emma to ride, her laughter echoing across the pasture. Luke guided Daniel's rope, pride in his eyes. At supper, they all bowed heads together, giving thanks not for riches, but for belonging. The townsfolk no longer whispered doubt, they tipped hats with respect. "That's the Morgan place," they said. "Strongest family in the valley." Clara smiled at the irony. It wasn't just Luke's anymore. It was theirs, built not by chance, but by grit, and held together by love. Sometimes Luke still carried shadows nights when he woke sweating, guilt whispering, but Clara was always there, steady as the land itself. She'd place a hand on his chest, calm his breath, remind him, "You're here, you're needed, you're loved," and he'd fall back into sleep, anchored by her voice. Other times, it was Clara who faltered, haunted by loneliness past. Then Luke would pull her close, whispering, "You'll never be alone again, not while I've breath." In each other, they found balance, strength the West demanded, and tenderness it rarely allowed. Together, they made both possible. One summer evening, they hosted neighbors for supper, the first time Clara had opened her doors wide since her husband's death. Laughter filled the rooms, children ran barefoot, and music drifted from a fiddle. Jensen raised a glass. To Clara and Luke, proof that even in the West, love can outlast loss. Luke blushed, Clara chuckled, but inside, her heart swelled. She looked at the table, Daniel and Emma giggling, friends smiling, and realized her ranch was no longer a lonely outpost. It was a home, warm and unshaken. And for the first time, she welcomed the sound of life filling every corner. Years would pass, and folks would tell the story of how a desperate cowboy came to a strong cowgirl asking her to take his children. They'd say she refused, unless she could take him too. Some called it foolish, some romantic, but all agreed it was the choice that saved them. The Morgan Ranch became a place whispered about with respect, not pity. And when travelers passed, they'd see not a widow or a drifter, but a family, bound by more than blood, bound by grit, by love, and by a bargain that turned despair into destiny. On a quiet evening, Clara and Luke sat once more on the porch, the sun sinking red behind the hills. Daniel and Emma played in the yard, their laughter a hymn against the silence of the land. Luke leaned back, hat tipped, sighing content. "Never thought I'd find this," he murmured. Clara smiled, her hand slipping into his. "Neither did I. But the West gives, if you're stubborn enough to stay." Dust swirled in the golden light, soft and steady. And as the horizon stretched endless before them, they knew their story wasn't about survival anymore. It was about belonging.